128 districts, 2,70,000 members, and yet there can be only one number one, which our District 92 has been. All under the very capable leadership of this one man, I have had the privilege of knowing the youngest district director of District 92, Rishabh Mehta. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for having me over.
Rishabh, I see that there has been a drastic change in your introduction. From being an ardent lover of veg biryani to now the best district director of the world. How do you feel now? Is that feeling over and beyond you, or are you still living that glory?
Well, for starters, not everything has changed, right? Because I'm still an ardent biryani lover. That's still something that I advocate very strongly. But that entire feeling of being at Bahamas, witnessing all that we had achieved in front of thousands and thousands of people, and getting that opportunity in the first place to wave Toastmasters international flag was just, it's a feeling that I can't express in words, honestly, right? I have had a chance to go to the international convention, which is the annual conference of Toastmasters, 3 years in a row, but I missed every single time because we were in COVID, right? And the restrictions were a lot more there. It was not easy to travel during those years, right? So when I got that opportunity after the 3 years of my leadership journey had completed, it was just mesmerizing, for the lack of a better word, to walk in front of thousands and thousands of people who are chanting and shouting your name, who are cheering for your district, for your country, who don't even know you. It was a feeling that I can't just express, without a smile on my face, because of the achievements that the entire team worked towards. And I think the one thing that I realized when I was there at Bahamas, trying to still soak in all that was coming my way, right? The one thing that I realized is that when we all were getting recognized on the stage, it was still a recognition that happened on the stage for the achievements that our district had done. It was not an achievement, it was not a celebration or a recognition for the team who had worked behind, who had worked in the shadows to make sure that they were recognized, right? And that's where I felt that after coming from Bahamas, after experiencing all of that, I wanted to bring in that experience to my team. I wanted my team to experience that when we celebrated our annual conference a few months back, right? And that's where I felt that it was not really a celebration without my team, without the people who worked in the shadows, right? And that's where I felt that that feeling is still there. Anyone, anytime talks about that here, there's just, I become speechless like this.
I'm so glad that I was also a part of this grand celebration, and every time Rishabh talks about being behind the shadows, he just helps us all feel like Batman. And thank you, Rishabh, for doing that. Speaking of recognition, I'd like to point out to all of our viewers that Smedley's Distinguished District is the highest form of recognition that a district can get in one program year. While we were leading District 92 as part of program year 2023 alongside Rishabh as our leader, Rishabh, being the man of dark humor, puns and one-liners, had set a very clear goal for us for the term, which was SaathMeSmedley.
So SaathMeSmedley isn't something that we started off our term with, right? That's something that came in the middle of the term. We started off term with a vision at first, right? Nothing but Smedley also came in later, which was eventually with what we started off. And this is something that I feel is very important for any leader, right? That the first and foremost thing that you need to absolutely have is a vision, is a goal. That where exactly do you want to go? What is the outcome that you're looking at from leading the team that you're leading, right? And over the last few years that I've had experience in taking up multiple leadership roles in District 92, right? What I've felt is that the team needs to be empowered, that this is what we want to achieve, and they need to speak the language, they need to speak the vision that you are speaking as a leader, and the vision that you have set for yourself. And that's where I felt that for our team, for my team, we didn't want to settle for anything less. We wanted to achieve the absolute best that's there for our district, which was Smedley. And I think it also goes to the point that as a leader, it is extremely important for you to choose the right words, to convey your message, to convey your vision using the right set of words, because words have power, absolute power. Throughout the entire history, if you look at, right, there have been multiple instances where we can call out the difference that power of words, speeches, phrases have made. Uh, you talk about, let's say, an all-time classic speech of Martin Luther King, which is "I have a dream," that was able to empower generations of people to work towards a cause. And it can also work in the other ways, right? With our Indian classic of Mahabharata, the role that Shakuni played with Kauravas and especially Duryodhan, right? He was able to influence Duryodhan, Kauravas in a bad manner to a greater extent. But the important thing for us to learn is that as an individual, as a leader, the words that you speak, the phrases that you call out, the messages that you give can leave a lasting impression on the mindset of your team. And that's why it's super critical for you to choose the right words.
But Rishabh, I'll just cut you here. When you thought of nothing but Smedley as a goal or as a mantra, war cry for the district, and then you had to shift it to SaathMeSmedley because of the right usage of words, was there a mental battle that you fought to adapt yourself to change it eventually?
It was a battle. I won't even say it was a battle, right? I would say it was more of a shift that was needed. Because when you speak of nothing but Smedley, three very simple, straightforward words, easier to understand for people who are in Toastmasters, right? But I felt that when you're starting a war cry with the word nothing, it itself is a negative word to start off your war cry. It is a negative word to start off to set the vision that you have set for the team. And more than that, I felt that the team needed to be empowered a lot more, that they need to feel that we are all in this together, that we are all striving and working towards achieving the goal together. And that's where the shift of nothing but Smedley to SaathMeSmedley happened. That it's still the same goal, it's still the same vision that we want to achieve, but we want the messaging change, the intent change, that we are doing this together. And hence the change, which again goes to the same point, right? That every word that you speak is crucial. From nothing but Smedley to SaathMeSmedley, there's just two words that has changed. But the importance, the emphasis of those two words had a drastic impression on the team, is what I felt.
So Rishabh, the moment we say leader, at least I have a set image in my mind. I look at Batman, I look at Gandhiji. And I think most of us have a set image in our mind. And as Toastmasters also, we have 4 core values that we know of, that we try and speak about: respect, integrity, service and excellence. But what according to you are your core values that you stand by as a leader?
Uh, More than core values, I just look at skill sets or traits that are needed in a leader, or at least that's the skill set that I would want to imbibe a lot more in myself as a leader, right? Because when you talk of core values, it's a different conversation in itself, right? Because then we are talking about different values that drive you as a leader. I feel that while there are those values that are already defined by our organization or the different organizations that we work in, it is the skill set of an individual that defines the kind of leader that they are or they would want to become. All right. Like we have already discussed in terms of the ability for a leader to communicate. I think that's just super critical for you to have in terms of how effectively you are able to communicate your message, your vision, your ideas to the team. Because that's something that they would use as a basic reference to work on the various goals that they have set for ourselves. So having an absolutely clear understanding of how do you effectively communicate with your team is just super critical. There are a few more things that I feel are absolutely needed, and these are not in any chronological order, right? These are all equal. Like if I were to write it down, I'll write it in the same line and not chronologically, right? Another thing that I feel is super critical is for you to build a team and a culture. You look at various successful organizations in the world, you look at various successful businesses that are run around, startups that are run around, right? None of those organizations, businesses are being run by a single person. There's a team that's running that entire organization, business, or a startup for that matter, right? Yes, it might be a brainchild of an individual, it might be an idea of one single person or a few people working together, but in the end, it's a team that drives that entire vision forward. And I strongly believe in this saying that the strength of the wolf is a pack, and the strength of the pack is wolf. And that's super critical for you to build a team where everyone is aligned with the culture that you want to imbibe in them. Another thing that I feel is absolutely critical, and that's something that I keep at a very high end, that when we speak of teams, right, a lot of leaders would call out that this is a team that I would want to build like my family, or this is my family, right? I don't want to do that. That's not why. That's not who I am, right? Because I don't believe in building family when I'm working with a team. I believe in building an army, because the kind of discipline that is there in people who are in army, right? It's just absolutely high, and you would always feel, at least that's what I believe in, that uh, people in army push the other members a lot more consistently, diligently, and making sure that they're working very aggressively in terms of getting the results or getting the outcomes that they've set for themselves, right? So I personally feel that you should not look at building a family. You should look at building an army where everyone is striving to move forward and achieve the goals that they've set for themselves. And finally, what do you think is the basic responsibility of a leader?
It's just to lead.
It's just to lead. I feel the basic responsibility of a leader is to create more leaders. Uh, for a leader to lead, there will be followers, right? But if you're only having followers follow you, you are not ensuring a sustainability aspect come into picture. You're not ensuring, or you're not looking at a long-term vision or playing the bigger game where you're looking at, let's say, 10 years, 15 years, 50 years from now, right? And that's where I feel that it is super critical for you as a leader to look at how can you groom more leaders who will in turn groom more leaders, and this entire process will go on and on. And I think these are those small skill sets that I feel are super critical and fundamental at the very least for you to become an effective leader.
Every line that you say, I'm absolutely visualizing that one day when you set this post on Instagram with the song Aram Hai Prachand, and now I know why you call it your army and why you chose that song that you did that.
Yeah.
So Rishabh, we just spoke about having an army of friends and folks who are with you. One of the fondest memories that I have when you took over as the district director of District 92 is you came on to the podium and you addressed the audience as ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and members of the LGBTQIA plus community.
Yeah.
And it just struck a chord in my heart, because in a world where we start our meetings and discussions with hi guys or ladies and gentlemen, where we don't even realize that we are not being absolutely inclusive, you have stood out as a true champion of inclusivity, equity and equality, and I absolutely recommend what you do.
So see, the thing is, first of all, it's just unfortunate, right, that even in 2024 we have to actively talk about inclusivity in the way we speak, right? And it's also like connected with the point that I made, right, that every single word that you say leaves an impression in the mindset, regardless whether they are in your team or not, whether you're actually leading them or not. But as a leader, when you're on a stage, when you're speaking, every word that you speak can leave a lasting impression. But coming back to the point, right, that it's just so unfortunate that even today we have to talk about inclusivity. We have to tell or advise people, recommend people that you need to have diverse team members in your team, right? And diversity is not just restricted to gender. Don't assume that when I speak of diversity, it's just about having people across different, from different genders. It's not just that. Diversity has got a lot to do with people across different walks of life, which means people with different experiences, different skill sets. It could also be with people who are coming in with different thoughts, different ideas, different style of working and making work done, right? So when you speak of diversity, different ages is, again, like I said, different walks of life, right? And that's what is needed, that you are open to consider, to bring in, or at least put in an effort to have diverse and showcase a mindset of having inclusive team members in the team, right? Now, I don't say that as a leader you should be inclusive and diverse, so that means that you need to have one representation from all of these different communities, if I can call it that way, right? The point is, in the end, you still need the right set of people who are capable to do the work that is being asked, or to play the different roles that you have designed or that you have defined in your team. But all that I'm saying is you need to be a lot more objective in terms of evaluating a candidate, a team member, and then figure out where exactly will that person fit in the team for the goal that you have designed for yourself. So that's the overall, that's the long game, right? That's the end game. That you need to give everyone an equal chance, everyone an equitable chance in terms of ensuring that your selection or decision is solely dependent on their skill sets, keeping in mind that how diverse you can be in your thoughts, ideas, narratives, stories.
Okay, Rishabh. Now I can totally echo with what you are trying to say, and I have seen you lead this pack of wolves coming from diverse backgrounds, age, stage of their lives or phases.
Yeah.
Was it difficult, or was there a plan that you implemented while you tried being all of our safety net? Because we knew we could fall back on you. You had to ensure all of our safety, psychological safety, was not compromised.
Uh, I think it goes to the point of having trust, and that's a topic that I love talking about, right? Because as a leader, you need to have trust in your team, and your team needs to have that trust in you as a leader. The beauty about trust is that you can't really know if you trust someone, and if you could trust someone without trusting them in the first place. It's a cycle, it's a loop, right? That the only way you can be absolutely sure is when you have trusted them in the first place, and maybe they have succeeded in the trust that you put in them, or maybe not. But there is no other way out. And I've heard this so many times. I've gotten this question a lot many times when I speak to different people, right? That how can I make that decision of trusting someone, and what if they don't stick to the trust that I've put in? And I think that's the beauty of trust, right? That's why I just love building a team or bringing in different people where I can empower them that and show them the value that this is the trust, this is the value that has been put on them. You see, if trusting people is a mistake, right? I would like to make that mistake again and again, because when you trust people, that's when people can surprise you. And the only way you can trust them is by trusting them in the first place. There's no other way around. You have to trust them. You have to show them what they are capable of. And that can only happen when you empower them.
Man of words and work, Rishabh Mehta. So Rishabh, we just walked through the active leadership and Bahamas and being world's number one. But today, as we sit in the July of 2024, and now that you are no longer a part of active district leadership, as we call it, is there a void, or is there a relief, or are you just afraid of being irrelevant to the next set of leaders in the district?
I think irrelevant or irrelevancy is too strong a word that people associate themselves with, in terms of giving that word a lot of power, in a sense that they become maybe too scared that they would end up becoming irrelevant, right? I personally feel that everyone eventually will become irrelevant in terms of time and people. What I mean by that is, over the next few years with time, and over the next few years with newer folks coming in, everyone to a greater extent would become irrelevant, because they might not be, because the newer folks in a newer time might not be aware of everyone who has led or who has been a leader in the previous years, right? So as far as being irrelevant or becoming irrelevant is concerned, right, I'm pretty sure that everyone who's currently, let's say, a leader has a great probability to become irrelevant with time and with people. But the one thing that I absolutely don't want to happen with me, and that's something that I'm going to keep working on, is that I don't want to become irrelevant because I don't have the skill sets that are needed with the times that are changing, right? What I mean by that is, every single year there's this newer request, there's newer demand that's coming in terms of the newer problems that the next batch of leaders would face. So that's something that I'm aspiring to get better at, in terms of still being able to identify problems that the next batch of leaders would face, and ensure that I am equipped with everything that is needed to ensure that I have the skill sets which is needed with the times that are changing.
So Rishabh, you have the skill set and you can identify a problem that's there. Let's talk about a situation which can be very real, where you have served as the district director and then the immediate past district director.
Yeah.
And this year when you see somebody else take that role and you can identify a few mistakes from far or things to do better, if you don't want to say mistakes.
Yeah.
Is it very difficult to let go and let them have their own time and then make the mistakes and then realize what you have probably realized?
I think it's more of a process for you to understand that you have to let go. Because when you were a leader or when you were in that position of and you had a title, right, you didn't want anyone else to interfere in terms of what is something that they would want you to do better. You wanted to grow, you wanted to learn, and you wanted to address the challenges that you faced when you were in the leadership role that you were. You would have sought counsel, you would have sought guidance, and recommendations from the leaders who have led or who have been in your role before. But in the end, it was still you who were calling the shots, right? So even this year, and I'm pretty sure over the next few years as well, given the experience that I've had, I would always have various points and inputs and opinions, right? Because I have gone through that role. But it is very important for any leader to let go of that aspect, that you can't always intervene. Yes, I'll still be around to help if there is an ask, if someone wants to reach out to me, if there's a question that comes to me, right? And this is where I think I resonate a lot more with this beautiful quote that's there in Harry Potter, right? That help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. And I think that's exactly what leaders need to do in terms of ensuring that when they are moving out of a particular role and a title, they have groomed the next set of leaders so well that they have all that it takes to solve the problems and the concerns that they would face, and yet reach out to various leaders in terms of taking their counsel and guidance that they need.
Speaking of grooming, we have this beautiful culture in Toastmasters where we groom the next set of leaders, where we are always there for the next team while they take on their own stride. But in competitive industries, I have noticed that there is a reluctance many a times from the seniors to groom the juniors for personal or professional insecurity. What is your take on this bit of leadership?
So I feel that when we speak of corporates or when we speak of organizations, not just corporates, right, organizations in general, I feel leadership is more of an extension to who you are as an individual. It is a direct reflection of your character as an individual, of who you are as an individual, right? What that essentially means to me is, if you are someone who's very secure as a person, it becomes very evident and very easy for you as a leader to be in that time, in that mindset, that even if my juniors, even if the leaders that I am leading eventually become better, that's not going to impact me as an individual or as a leader. And it's very, very difficult for you to build that actively as a mindset, right? Because when I started off my journey as a leader, right, and especially let's say if I talk of Toastmasters or District 92, right, or the various leaders that I have in my organization or the previous organizations that I was a part of, I had seen many giants around. And by giants, I mean these are people who everyone would look up to. These are people who would be loved by everyone, respected by everyone. And when I started off, I always had this question in mind, that how would I be able to find my voice and outshine as a leader amidst the sea of leaders that are around. And it took me a lot of time to realize and become aware as to who I am as an individual. So this aspect of you being secure as a person is more important, because when you're secure as a person, you would be more secure as a leader. And that's where you would be able to transition. That's where you'll be able to groom next set of leaders. Because there's a very high probability that your successors would eventually be better than you. That's how this entire theory of evolution works, right? That every generation after generation needs to be better, needs to be much, much better rather than the current generation. So they would outperform you, they would outshine you. There's no denial. But as long as you are secure as an individual, you would be secure as a leader. And once you're secure as a leader, that's when you will be able to do bigger things and better things.
Thank you, Rishabh. That's just very enlightening to hear from somebody so young. But jokes apart, Rishabh, when we speak about leading so well in a younger age than what we usually see, has there been a constant mentorship by somebody or an army of mentors, as you love armies and people being consistent around? Has there been this true force that has helped you lead so well?
Definitely. And it is very important for us to also identify that more often than not, what I've lately seen, uh, be it in terms of, let's say, giving speeches, be it in terms of moving forward in leadership journeys, be it in terms of moving forward in and advancing in their career journeys as well, right? We end up seeing people associating themselves that particular person is my mentor who has helped me and groomed me. But what I feel is that you should not just restrict yourself to just one individual or one person as your mentor. I, for someone, has had the privilege of having numerous people who have mentored me over the course of my journey. Not just restricting in Toastmasters, right? I'm just thankful to, let's say, someone like Sarnik or Nawab, who has constantly ensured that I think and look at the bigger picture, that I'm always asking questions. It doesn't matter whether the question's right or wrong, but I'm asking questions. Uh, Pavas, Gauri, for example, have been those pillars in terms of ensuring that we are looking at the bigger picture, that we are not just looking at growth of leadership in terms of what's next for the next 1 month, 2 months, 5 months, 10 months for that matter. It's more of how can you ensure that there are more processes that are enabled that governs the way we function as a group, that we function as a team. And there have been few people who have influenced me just by who they are as individuals. And I think right now we're living in a world where a lot of things are being driven from influences, right? And Kavya Gowda, for example, has been one of those influences for me, who has taught me just this one beautiful uh, philosophy, if I can call it, which is assume the best intentions. Anything that happens in your team, anything that a team member does, which is, let's say, not up to the mark of what you wanted as an outcome, right? The first thing that comes to our mind is why it did not work, or we blame the person, or we figure out what could be the next step. But we always look at in terms of how someone can take the bullet in terms of what has happened, right? But that's one thing that I've really learned from Kavya in terms of ensuring that we assume the best intentions, that the intent is there in your team members, in the people that you're leading, and that intent is what is going to drive the entire team together. So I think there have been many such leaders who have given me various kinds of learnings over the many years that I've been around, and that has shaped me in terms of who I am today.
It's just so beautiful how different people have different takes from the same human. You just spoke of Kavya, and I'd like to go on record saying I absolutely loved and still love how she speaks so perfectly on feminism, which was again one of the sessions that you arranged in your PQD term with all of us. And Kavya was so on point. But talking of all of your mentors, Rishabh, I understand that you have been helped and seeked guidance from a lot of people. But how was it to convert this guidance to your mentees or the pack who looked up to you as their leader?
So one thing that I've tried to always call out is before you call out what needs to be done, before you highlight that this is the goal that you have for your team, or this is where we want to reach, or this is the outcome that you're looking at, it is super critical for you to call out what have been your learnings over the last many years. And that's something that I call out with my team every time that I'm supposed to lead a group of people, right? That this is what I've done so far, this has been the various mistakes that I've made, and I don't want you to make those mistakes. It's okay if you're making a new mistake. It's okay if you are failing at times, because humans are flawed. You are flawed, I am flawed, everyone is flawed in some way or the other, and they would end up making mistakes. But the point is, they should know that they are in a safe place, they're in a comfortable environment where even if they are making mistakes, the question is, why did you make a mistake? The question is, what did you learn, and how is it that this is a different mistake that you have made? You see, I am someone who would either ask you for an outcome or a lesson. I'm not asking you why it did not happen the way it should have been happened. What was missing is what we are looking at. And that's where it is super critical for you to groom leaders. And you just don't groom leaders by delegating responsibility. You groom leaders by delegating authority. You give them that authority that this is what is expected, and you have the entire freedom to do what you want to do. And that's where, when they know that they have a failed space, they have an environment where they will be welcomed regardless of whether they make a mistake or they end up being successful, and that they know that this is who they are and this is what is expected of them with the complete authority end to end. That's when they would realize the true potential and become better versions of themselves as leaders and as individuals.
As you speak, Rishabh, I'm just thinking back 1.5 years ago when you would call most of us and ask what's the update. And rather than telling upfront of what to do next, you would always ask us, "Ab kya karna hai?"
Yeah.
And it just resonated so much in your answer today, where we were allowed and we were opened up so much to take our own decisions, at least come up with solutions that we thought were right.
Yep.
They were right or not is something that we'll ask about later. But thank you for doing that. But also, what I've realized, when you work with such a big team, when you work with such a diverse team as we just spoke about, mostly they come with a lot of opinions. And was it difficult to work with a variety of leaders with their own opinions, and conflicts are bound to happen in such an environment? So how did you handle that bit of leadership?
See, effective leadership has gotten a lot of points that you need to take into consideration. And when you're working with a diverse team, as you called out, there will be a lot of conflicts. There will be a lot of difference in opinions, right? But what is important for you to realize and understand is that we are promoting the right set of culture, or we are creating the right set of culture where everyone knows that in the end, everyone is working towards the same cause. It's just maybe that they are coming in from a different perspective. It's just maybe that they have seen a different kind of a world before they came into this team, and they're exposed to ensuring that all of us that what we are doing here is towards the same goal and the same mission. So as long as you are able to put forth that mindset when there is a clash of opinions, that in the end we're still working towards the same goal, that's what defines and drives the team together. And once we have sort of established that fact that both the parties who are in a conflict at that point in time are working or are supposed to work towards the same goal, that's when we look at in terms of bringing them along and talk about their concerns in a manner which is not disrespecting the other party. Like, you want to put forth your points of what according to you is not working, but it needs to be in a manner which is still respectful to the difference of opinions of the other parties or the people who are not agreeing with the mindset that you have. So in the end, how I would look at resolving a conflict is not necessarily resolving, it's more of managing a conflict in terms of ensuring that we are still working towards the same cause. We are still travelers of the same boat who are moving forward and going towards the same destination. There will be differences of opinions because people come in from different mindsets, people come in from have different perspectives. But how can we still take that along and make ourselves a better team and a stronger team?
Agreed, Rishabh. While I completely understand and agree that conflict management is something that a leader should learn along the way, I think recognizing their team is also a very important trait of a leader. What is your take on recognition of your team?
I think recognition is very important. There's no questions about that. It is as straightforward as it can get, and that's where your understanding of who you are as a leader also comes in, which I said earlier is an extension of who you are as an individual. What I mean by that is there will be instances where you would do great as a team and you will achieve a lot of accolades. There will also be phases where you have not done that great as a team and there will be failures. And that's where it is super critical for you to have this mindset is at least what I did, is that my team owns the success, but I own the failure. Which again goes back to the same point, that they realize and understand that while we are actively pursuing excellence, while we are actively working towards the same goal, there will be those phases where things will hit us. And if that happens, they know that their leader is standing with them and is the wall between them and the outside world, so that nothing is going to impact their stability as an individual. And another thing that I've noticed is that as leaders, that I have seen or have led various teams in that manner, as a society, as individuals, we celebrate ideas over execution. We celebrate people, we recognize people, we are in a way attracted to leaders who are able to come up with newer initiatives, newer ideas, newer thought processes over those leaders who have been able to drive execution or implementation of those ideas. You see, nobody ever gets credit for fixing a problem that never happened. As individuals, as leaders, we thrive on chaos, we thrive on spectacle. If you talk about organizations, right? Every organization, I'm pretty sure, would have a red, yellow, green matrix for project deliverability, for project delivery, or in terms of how crucial that project is or at what stage is. And we always talk about how an individual or a leader was able to transform that project from red to green in a span of 2-3 months and able to win a big project for us. But we hardly ever appreciate an individual or a leader who has been putting in the efforts day in, day out, consistently, and ensuring that the entire project delivery that leader was supposed to drive isn't consistently green. You see, we prefer more in terms of how much spectacle or what kind of a story we are able to sell, we are able to generate from a particular individual, than that of an individual who's consistently putting those efforts diligently. We are always talking about rags to riches, right? But we are never talking about consistent efforts by an individual. As a society, I think we are more inclined towards reactive leadership than that of a proactive leadership. And that's one thing that I feel needs to change when it comes to recognizing leaders. That as a leader, you need to identify those consistent performers in your team, those consistent leaders in your team who are coming in, diligently putting in their efforts and ensuring that everything is moving at a stability, because these are the leaders who are providing stability to your team when other leaders are becoming more reactive.
Rishabh, when I asked you the question on conflict, or now that we are just talking about recognition, I knew it in my heart that you wouldn't lead it to anywhere where it can lead to further conflicts, but I was somewhere hoping in my heart that you would take a few names in here and there, but knowing the gentleman that you are, you didn't. Because I have always, and most of us has always looked at you as somebody who's very sorted in your head and your heart. But I would really like to know, in your leadership journey through Toastmasters or professionally, has there been any low point, a specific point of vulnerability where you thought that this isn't working, or you've hit the wall?
I think in everyone's journey, there will be various instances where they will hit a low in terms of, be it their personal journeys, their professional journeys, their leadership journeys outside, be it Toastmasters or any other organization that they are a part of. One thing that I've really tried my best, and that's the kind of person that I am, is whatever has influenced me or has impacted me outside of the role that I'm playing or the leader that I'm being, I do not let that impact the way I deal with a team. But if I were to talk about that one instance where everything had just hit the absolute rock bottom, was during COVID. I think it was in the month of August, September 2020. The entire world was struggling. All of us were confined to our rooms. At that point in time, I was supposed to play a role wherein I was, supposed to drive the growth of Toastmasters. I was supposed to drive the growth of members for our organization, right? And that's at a phase where, things are just getting crazy out there, right? People are going through losses, which is personal. This job scarcity that come in, people were getting fired. there's just so much that was happening outside of the world of Toastmasters, which was impacting and influencing the lives of an ordinary member. So much so that I'm pretty sure in some way or other it would have impacted you as an individual. It did impact me as an individual. But as leaders, you don't talk about that, right? Because as leaders, you're supposed to inspire people, you're supposed to motivate people, you're supposed to groom leaders. But that was one phase where I know that I had hit my absolute worst in terms of what I was expected to drive as a leader and who I was as an individual. But the one thing that really helped me, or that really drove me, and that made me realize the power of this community is that even during those struggling times, those testing times for us as an organization, for us as individuals, right? Here was a community that was ready to pivot in terms of ensuring that we are no longer talking about only growth or professional development in terms of becoming better speakers, better leaders. And I think all of us as a community came together in ensuring that we created those helplines, we created those groups where we were able to assist people who are in need of, let's say, anything that they need, because there was lockdown all around, be it related to COVID testing, be it related to ration, be it related to food, water, or anything that they needed, helping elderly citizens in their societies, because maybe their kids are living in a different society. We created different groups in terms of helping people to find more jobs, more referrals effectively and easily because of the power that we have as a network. So I think that phase was one of those times where it was very difficult for me as a leader, that there's this expectations, there's responsibilities that you have to drive, but you can't let that impact you, because you're also supposed to take care of the people who are in your charge. I think Simon Sinek has called this out so beautifully across multiple of his talks, that leadership is not about people in charge. It is about taking care of people who are in your charge. And I think that's where it was so important that we pivoted as an organization to help our members, and we created a community. It was no longer about coming in a meeting, talking about public speaking or leadership. It was coming in a meeting and sharing our stories, sharing our sorrows, sharing our joys. And we were able to find a tribe, in a sense, a group of people that we can rely when the light was, absolute dark. When it was absolute dark all around.
Rishabh, as a member who fell in love with Toastmasters and otherwise during that period that we're just talking about, COVID, I think District 92 was so beautiful and warm in terms of, I found the best of my friends. I found, of course, job help. I found emotional, mental support. I was all by myself in Bangalore at that time. And I totally understand what you are trying to remind us all of, what it means to be a...
I think, and I would also like to add, right, that I'm a Potterhead, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people who might be watching this are, because Harry Potter has had a major influence in terms of when we were growing up, right? There's this one particular scene that I'm able to remember right now, that I can resonate with what happened in that phase of COVID. That when Dumbledore had died and all of the students in Hogwarts have come to see what has happened, despite what they were witnessing as one of the lowest moment in their journeys as students, they still took out their wands, raised it in the sky, and were ensuring that the sky is brighter even if the times are darker. And I think that's one thing that I can I can resonate so much. I mean, saying this, I feel goosebumps when I say this, that we were able to create an organization, we were able to create a community that was probably shining the brightest when the times were darkest.
And I remember you sending this mail to all members, quoting the same, as you say, I just remembered that mail. Rishabh, we spoke at length about your leadership in general, your journey. But what, according to you, or who, according to you, is a good leader?
See, this word or phrase, when we speak of or associating people with defining them as a good leader or a bad leader, I think these are very casually designed and defined mechanism when we associate these words or phrases or qualities with leaders, right? Because firstly, everyone is a leader. Like a leader is a leader. It's just that as an individual, when we prefer certain qualities or skill sets, that we want these attributes as our non-negotiable traits when we are working with a leader. And if a leader is able to reciprocate those qualities and skill sets, they, according to us, is a great leader, or they, according to us, is the best leader that you want to work with. But vice versa, if there is a leader who prefers some other skills compared to what your skills are preferred, then they are being categorized as bad leaders, right? For example, let's say you prefer working with a lot of freedom, with a lot of accountability, and having that element of respect and no questioning coming your way. And if there is a leader who wants a daily status quo, who wants an update as to where we are, what's next, just because there's a difference of priorities in terms of skill sets that they prefer or qualities that they prefer to what you prefer, then your definition of a bad leader would kick in, right? So I personally feel that this definition of a bad leader, good leader is just our association of qualities that we prefer to the leader that we are comparing with. To me, again, as an individual, if I were to tell just my opinion of skills that I would prefer in terms of working with a leader, right? These would be, a summary of what we all just spoke, right? In terms of having and building a team that is giving them a safe, culture, that is creating a safe environment for them to try, succeed, even fail, but they know that, there is someone who can take that bullet if needed. Giving your team members more credibility, more accountability to work rather than just delegating responsibilities, creating a safe environment, a secure environment is absolutely needed. And I think more than anything else, as a leader, you need to be a lot more secure yourself, and that's where you'll be able to groom more leaders. And to sum it all, I would say that I personally feel that leadership, or the journey to become a great leader, an effective leader, is not a battle that you need to win. It's a lifelong war. And for that to happen, you need to constantly put in efforts, you need to constantly show up, you need to constantly work on yourself and get better. Last man standing, or to be inclusive, last person strategy is the ultimate vision that I feel, that if you're there until the end, you'll emerge as the greatest leader of all time. So I just feel that the journey to become a great leader is not a battle. It's a war, a lifelong one.
Thank you, Rishabh, for all of your insights. And of course, while we talk about leadership hustle, the hustle is incomplete without you. Thank you so much for being a part of our Baatcheet Beyond Small Talks. Conversation with the Rishabh Mehta, Baatcheet Beyond Small Talks. If you liked our initiative to initiate conversations which are comfortable and uncomfortable, please do like, share and subscribe us. Do visit District 92 where leaders are made. Thank you.
3, 2, 1, action. Well, for starters, I think I'm still a veg biryani lover, and the very fact